Hello, friends. It's so exciting to be here with you today. Today is the first full day of the new year, natural year, the new moon having happened last night, April 11th, and today, April 12th. We're in a new year with all of the cycles that have clicked into place, beginning the start of their first full year in effect. So it's a really exciting event, an exciting time. And I'm just going to quickly look. I did an early chart because I wanted to just capture this event. And so we have it right here where the new moon peaked with this bar of light. And it's interesting because there were a series of these, 1, 2, and then if we go to the chart the day before, you can see 3, okay? And so there was a bar of light, bar of light, bar of light. And all of these reminded me of this bar of light. This is the most notable bar of light that has happened recently. And then the building of these going into the new moon. So let's go into this, because this is there's a message here that I want to share with you, and it's an inspired energy message. But first, let's quickly look at the current chart. And what's interesting about this chart, it's melodic. You know, you have rest, bar of light, rest, bar of light, rest, bar of light. And so it's almost like a music sheet. I knew there was a lady who's a composer who had written in previously to the comments about, she had said that she perceived the chart, the Schumann Resonance chart, like a music sheet. In case you're new, the Schumann Resonance is an energy that's in the air. The measurement of that energy is between 0 and 40 hertz. It's non-physical, and it goes from the bottom of your feet up into to the top of the sky. And that 0 to 40 hertz range happens to also be the same range as the human brain waves, fascinatingly enough. And the range actually goes slightly over 40, but that's what this chart focuses on, so that's what I'm focused on accordingly. Okay, so there's a beginner playlist, and if you want to know why I spend time interpreting the images and the buildup of why I believe they're important and some of the science behind these things, you can take a look at some of those short videos. Okay, so here we are, and it's interesting. Let me just see. Let's go back to this here. So you had the first bar, and it was interesting. There was like a little, a little pointy-eared thing at the top of this bar. And then it had some interesting patterns down here. And then you had this one where the white cleared the bar. Like, I kind of felt like the white initiated here, the white resonance, and then it's like a flushing of a tube, and it clears it, and then you have a bunch of red here in the higher hertz, and then it turned to green and blue. But there's also some yellow in there. And then you have this bar. Oops, where'd it go? Yeah, there we go. Here, and you have another like flushing of the tube. It seems like the white resonance comes in and it seems to sweep away. Now, here you had the red again, although it was in a more patterned way. Here it was more disorganized, it seemed to me. And then here the patterns became clearer, and the blues and greens down here became clearer. Now let's go to today. So that is this right here. And then you had at the new moon a retracting again, and then the light again right here at 7.83 hertz. That was the part of the bar of light that is the most lit up. And look at these incredibly gorgeous colors here. I mean, something special has been happening with these magentas, these purples, these rose colors. And look at this. Look at, like, it's almost like a rainbow of colors here across these, I mean, vertically across these bars. It's phenomenal. I mean, the rainbow effect, I'd say that's pretty new. It's like this whole new set of opportunities, frequencies, exemplified by the colors. They're all lining up to become available to us. Now, the effect right now is muted because all the offering is kind of lining itself up. We're in the beginning, okay? We're the first day of the new year here. the peak, right, of the actual new moon on this day. So let's look behind the chart and take a look here. But before we do that, I'm going to just look. Yeah. Okay, so here we are in the frequency. So I've marked the new moon time. And it's interesting because right at the peak of the new moon, the frequency range for the white went down to 7.31, very close to the bottom of its range. It's been hitting highs, 8.3, for example, but now it's all the way down at 7.3. So I just thought it was interesting that it made that big dive down at that point. And the last video I did, I went through a lot of kind of background data on what all the colors mean and everything. So you can go and check that out. It's a video before this one if you want to. Basically, all of the frequency ranges are a little bit more contracted, okay? So the range of expression right now isn't necessarily at the full range. It's interesting here, even the green reached lows, 23.9, right before the full moon, a couple of point times here. This is close to lows, but not at its lows. Yeah, so anyway, a little bit more restricted, a little bit more muted right now in terms of the range of expression. Here, I just marked the amplitudes for these bars of light and for the new moon peak because I thought that it would be interesting to do that. And in all of these peaks, I think the description bar of light really is a good one because you can see how the white resonance is really topping the light bar. Even here, where the white resonance doesn't appear to go all the way through the bar, it's a multiple higher in amplitudes than the next highest number, which is yellow at 6. And here 25, significantly higher than 16, the next highest, and 28, more than double the next highest. So there truly is an expandedness coming through these bars, like set intentions in the chart, stakes in the ground as we go into the new year. And the qualities were interesting because they were really, they're really very linear, very much, especially the white, that's the one that's the most, but each one of these with some random spikes up here and pretty big spikes up, but overall with a feeling of really being flattish. The biggest movement was in the red, then the yellow, then the green. in terms of vertical movement within the ranges that they've moved within. So the whole thing looks very muted, like the shape of what's to come it's quiet right now. At some point, something's going to be revealed here. I don't know if we'll get an image later today. It does look like there might be an image building. I just don't know what it'll look like. And I don't know how long this building of energies will be for, because we've got a muted beginning here. And does it imply a slow reveal? I don't know. It certainly implies that we're beginning here in a kind of a secrecy, in a kind of a, it's like this. As an individual, I might have a fairly good idea of what I'm thinking about for the next year. I may have a fairly good idea, because the red is active, right? We saw in the qualities that the red was more active, for example. And that's also our passion, right? I went into this more in the previous video. So it's our passion, our access to our tool sets, even on our shadow side, is present. But we are keeping it to ourselves. So as an individual, if I have an idea of what I'm going to be doing, working on, how I think the things will shape up in the next year for me personally, I'm keeping it quiet, right? That's the sense here. And from a broader standpoint, I think that means societally that there are also hidden strategies behind the scenes. It would just make sense that the human condition would mirror the society condition, would mirror the human condition. Okay, now let's get to something really exciting here. This is part 2 of the video, of the video theme that I did a couple videos ago on human genomics. And I'll link that first video below in case you haven't seen it. Let's have a chat for a second. And in that video, I talked about themes going into the new year that were popping up in the Schumann. One of the key things was about human relationships, and that's what that video is about. And then about human genomics coming into play there. And I wanted to make this part 2, addressing a very specific aspect of that. And what I'm calling this is God's DNA. Now, I showed you on April 1st, we had this line here in the chart. And it was really, really stunning to me. I've talked about it a couple times recently, but the lines here really, really are reminiscent of images of karyotypes and genetic karyotypes, and also reminded me of a strand of DNA that was kind of unwound and laid flat, right, with all the little genomic information, genetic information within it, right? But it was interesting because there's a clear middle here. And look at that, just, anyway, I'm going to just focus on the new information here and not go back and repeat from the first video. But what was interesting is that this laid flat DNA strand here has a clear center. And what is fascinating is that this completely emanates energy work that I have seen and been guided to do, working with Archangel Raphael, Saint Raphael, the Archangel of Healing and protection, but in terms of bringing healing to the human physical form. He's so loving, and his colors are green. And I usually see green and golden with him because his hair looks golden. And you know, it's interesting because Raphael also, I've come to learn through various work that I've done that Raphael is also the archangel of technology and advanced technology. The energies of technologies is his dominion as well. Isn't it fascinating? You know, and to a certain extent, one way of looking at technology is it's just another flow of energy in the same way that we are a combination of energies of the Creator. Technology is a combination of energies. And in the same way that we have thoughts, right, that are non-physical, technology has Wi-Fi. In the same way that humans are capable of telepathy, are capable of intuitive connection, are capable of non-physical senses, technology is capable of Wi-Fi. There's some similarities there. But at any rate, back to the genomic discussion. So here you have this strand of DNA, okay? And there have been a lot of people who have been very concerned about, you know, the state of injections related to the, you know, illness that's been going around, okay? And so I wanted to talk about God's DNA. It's important to remember that what science has been finding is that at its most basic level, that DNA is made of light. Isn't that fascinating? That when you kind of look further and further and deeper into smaller and smaller, blow up those, you know, magnify the pieces of DNA, right, that a scientist is looking at. What they're finding, or what they believe, is that it's essentially light, made of light. And I thought that it was so interesting that the center of this DNA strand in the Schumann Resonance on April 1st, 2021, is made of light, right? Because we've got the white resonance emulating the celestial connection, expanded dimensional states, expanded ranges of frequencies. So let's talk about God's DNA. You know, when you think about things like let's talk about the stories from the Bible. How did Jesus do his healing, right? How did he heal miraculously? And how did he turn water into wine? Right? Because that's what happened. So think about it this way. The substance changed at its most basic and fundamental level. It shifted at that state of being. That's how he changed water into wine. And essentially, what he would have had to do is to call forth the God essence, right, in that. And that divinity is what changed the shape. The divine blueprint shifted to create something new. Kind of like when cells are multiplying in the womb, right, for a human being. You start out with one cell, you add all these cells, right? But the cells begin to differentiate. And the spark of life that we are, the bright light that's in those cells. And I've told the story of seeing this on sonogram at a pregnancy of, I think it was, no, I can't remember. I think it was either it was 9 days or it was just a very, very small number of weeks. But it was just a bright light flashing. And so the God force, right, is the message behind the cell division that happens and the differentiation. I'm comparing how cells differentiate, instructed ultimately by the God force within to develop a human being. And then that each cell has mechanisms and processes that science describes for getting this done. Well, so turning water into wine, right? Jesus called that forth at the most basic level. Divinity is what caused that transformation. So in terms of how Jesus healed, you can look at how he healed Lazarus, right? Lazarus is the person who died. He walked in and said, "Lazarus, arise." Something like that, okay? And Lazarus woke back up and was alive. His life returned to him. And so you could say that what Jesus did, how did that work, right? What he did, he called Lazarus' name, but he was calling forth the God force within that human being to ignite, to reignite, to flow back in, to re-enliven the cells of the body, to reignite the DNA, to relight the DNA, to fully fuel the human body again. And the same thing when he healed people who were ill, like the woman who ran after him and just reached out and touched his robe. What she was doing was accepting that the God force that Jesus embodied would also heal her, that he could embody that, and that if she could just touch that God force would reignite her cells, clear her body of that which was making her ill or sick or, whatever it happened to be that was going on with her, okay? And look, in our modern world, we have a lot of, even, we have emotional illnesses. We have illnesses of the mind, of thought. Besides physical illnesses, we have spiritual illnesses. I mean, and so when she reached out, she was reaching out to the God force. And that then ignited within her. Boom. So, here's what I want to share with you, okay? And I want to acknowledge that we are sharing this. We are talking. We are having a conversation, you and I, in a space of unconditional love that honors the divine, that receives, where there's a willingness to receive what the divine blesses us with, what the divine has to offer us if we are only willing, if we could only understand that these things are possible and that we are deserving. Okay, because think about the crowds that were around Jesus when that woman ran. She had to kind of push her way through to touch his robe. Think about all the people that were in the crowd that might have had something wrong with them, that might have had an illness of some sort, or some part of their body that wasn't working right, or mental sufferings. But just that woman ran forth to reach out to touch his robe. She had the courage, the bravery, and the willingness to change herself, the willingness to receive from him. Oh, it's just, it's so beautiful. And we can take her courage as an example. And immediately when she touched his robe, even though it wasn't a part of his body, he felt it. Why? Because he embodied the God force. And there was a connection with that God force. And so he felt it immediately. He knew, and turned around and addressed her. And, long story short, she was healed. Whew, it's amazing, isn't it? Well, look, let's talk about this. I want to do this in two ways. First, if this is your DNA strand, okay, and you feel that it needs healing in some way, call forth the God force within. Know that you're worthy of doing it, and that you have the authority as an incarnated soul. You were gifted this life by the Creator. Don't you think He wants you to live it to your fullest that you possibly can, including receiving for free the healing gifts that the divine has to give you, to offer you, right? Because we are the children of the divine who loves us so much. So if you feel that this would benefit you, call to that light and ask it to flood and heal in alignment with your highest good, in alignment with your highest outcomes, to heal the DNA that is you, that makes up you at every level of your being. And you can also add things like in all layers of dimension, in all realities in which I am, or which I experience, in all of my genetic lineage, in all of the genetic family line. You can ask for the Creator to heal your line from this, going all the way back to the beginning and all the way forward in alignment with the highest good, in alignment with unconditional love for you, in alignment with your highest outcomes, in alignment with what your soul wishes to express, embodying itself in you, right? As you as an embodied soul, what's in your highest good, both for the embodied soul that you are and the human being that you are. Those are two names for the same thing. For your human self and your soul self. Because without your human self, your soul self couldn't have this journey, right? Your human self is incredibly important. Okay, now, here's what I want to do next. Next, I want to look at a meditation and prayer that you can do regarding what I will call the injection, okay? Let's say that you or someone you love, you can do this with another person if you wish, but I just do it for myself, okay? I did do this prayer for someone in my family who did receive the injection. And what I did was I called upon Archangel Raphael. You can call upon your guardian angels, your highest, your higher soul level self, your higher self. You can call on Archangel Michael, the Archangel of Protection. You can call on, Jesus, Mary, whatever your spiritual practice is, the key religious figures, spiritual figures in your practices. My only suggestion here is to qualify that who you are calling upon is of the highest light, source level of the Creator, the highest source level light. Even when I call on the archangels, I've made it clear, that I am asking for their presence of the highest source level light. Okay, so let's say that there's an injection here. And there's an injection of a substance, and that's this little mechanism here. This substance is like a little machine that's going to work in the DNA. And so what I want to do is I want to give you a meditation and prayer around that will support you in your highest health. In addition to this injection. Okay, so there's the injection right there. And this little H is going to be our example of the little thing that this injection puts or into the DNA, or that attaches itself to the DNA, right? These are new injections that this hasn't been done before. Older ones were worked a different way. Okay, now, as time goes on, this little, let's call it a little machine, okay, because it's a genetically based machine, but a mechanism. But it's kind of like a machine, okay, a machination. It has a mechanism that operates. And let's say that mechanism is now multiplying, okay? So we started out with 1, and now it's replicating itself. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so, oh, shoot. I have, hold on, I gotta fix this. Yeah. Okay, now, there we go. Okay, so now what we want to do is this. Here's the little machine that's in the DNA. So what you do is you ask your angels of the highest light, Archangel. Now I'm going to use Archangel Raphael. And then, like I said, you can call in whoever you wish to work with. Just make sure that you qualify the level of frequency of being that you're working with. Okay, so I'm going to ask that Archangel Raphael, and he is the one that taught me this process, that he wrap this mechanism in light. Okay, so it's in the light of the DNA. Okay, and now we're asking that he wrap it in light like this. Okay, so now there's a protective light around this mechanism. This protective light encases the mechanism so that it can only operate in alignment with your highest good here, with the highest good of this DNA. That is the person's DNA who has had this injection. Okay? And so we ask that it be wrapped so that whatever it's doing, it can only transmit outward or receive information in whatever way it receives from the DNA or other pieces involved here, whether it's receiving information or transmitting, it's now wrapped in this protective layer of angelic light. Okay? And at all layers of dimensional state in which this body exists, and this light body exists, it's wrapped in such a way that the transmission outward and the reception of information inward occurs in alignment with the highest good, number one, in alignment with pure unconditional love for the human self and the soul self. That it occurs in alignment with the person's soul path, and, soul embodiment. And that it occurs in alignment with their highest outcomes for their soul self and human self. Isn't this beautiful? Okay. So once it's wrapped in the first piece, in the first point of injection, okay, the first part of this, it's now wrapped everywhere. Everywhere it has replicated in alignment with the highest good. And I ask that Archangel Raphael oversee this process and have dominion over it for all involved in alignment with the highest good. And by having dominion over it, what that means is that any shifts or changes, etc., that are in alignment with the highest good that need to be done are done by him. And in alignment with the highest self-agreement of the human being involved, consciously or unconsciously. Okay, so the higher self is kind of the, when there's an unconscious permission, the higher self is the determiner of that between the human being, the living human being, and the soul, of how that works. So, in other words, if you're praying for someone else and doing this energy work, and you have someone else beside yourself in mind, what you want to do is invoke the permission of the higher self. And look, the higher self may say no, in which case that's their soul level choice. And I honor that, right? Because God in a person is directing them. Whether you think it is or not, whether I think it should be that way or not, it's between them and God, whatever happens. Whatever happens to me is between me and God, me and my soul self, whatever my path is. Each path, each soul embodiment is incredibly unique and individual. So this is a tool. You can adjust it in ways that resonate with you. And I'm just giving you some general outlines of a process. Okay, now here's another cool thing. Watch this. If you want to take this to another level, watch this. Now, from an energetic basis that moves into the physical. Now, I ask that wrapped mechanism, having completed whatever it needs to complete or not, it depends on the soul choices and the conscious choices of the human being involved. I ask that be removed from my DNA and removed from my body's energy and my energetic system. Simple as that. I can ask that the angels of the highest light, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Michael, and his legions of angels of the highest light that are in his legions, that they wrap this in alignment with the highest good and take it to its place of highest good. If it's in alignment with the highest good, And you see, this is the wonderful thing about using the mechanism in alignment with the highest good. Here is what it is. If I, Susan, if I'm wrong about anything about this process, the divine has the override and fixes it in alignment with the highest good. Isn't that beautiful? That's why I feel confident sharing something like this with you. And I'll tell you what, I remember lifetimes where I thought that I was telling people something or I was advocating actions. And I thought I had that connection with the divine. And I spoke that connection through me. But what I didn't realize was that when divinity comes through us and we are in the lower dimensions, right? Because divinity is very, very expanded. And we are very compressed, right? Because we're in the third, fourth, maybe even fifth dimension. Some of us can reach higher than that at this point. But the energies warp through the dimensions. And especially when we've been in much, much denser layers of 3D, what happens is the energy warps to us, and we have in the past, what happened was I made decisions only from my human self. In other words, I felt the connection with the divine. Then I let that filter into my mind and my emotions. And I thought, oh, I feel that connection. And now I can think through this or feel through this and know that I've got the right answer. Well, this is why I always talk about connecting with that soul impulse, that co-creation. See, there's a subtle difference between receiving the impulse and then choosing to only bring that through your mind or emotions, filtering it through your human reality and then acting, versus receiving the soul impulse and acting. Regardless of mental analysis, regardless of emotional analysis, whatever my emotional and mental analysis say is fine. It informs me. But I now make the soul impulse the priority. And it is a very subtle thing. And we're human beings. I'm a human being. In this lifetime, because of the pain of some of these memories of previous times, I came to understand that I wanted to choose to align with the divine like that, to let it pulse through me to the best of my ability, and to add on in the highest good. And maybe there's a phrase that you develop that's of a similar type mechanism, okay, that resonates more with you in some way. But so in the highest good works for me, because what is in the highest good for me is in the highest good of all at the higher spiritual levels. In the highest good of you is in the highest good of all at the higher spiritual levels. How could that be? It has to do with the fact that the Creator turns all to our highest good. The Creator turns darkness into light for us. It's an incredibly beautiful part of the soul journey. So I just wanted to, in case you're going to use this, in case you choose to use this in your life, I just want to back up I just wanted to walk back there and give you that extra detail about engaging the permission of the higher soul level self, about co-creating with divinity, because to really do this, it really actually requires that level of integrity, if you will. To only do this from the mind, to only do this from the emotion, it does not quite have the effect. And to analyze human problems and to only use the mind to make a determination warps the energy of divinity that comes through the mind because of long stories that, I don't want to get into right now. But the potential for that is highly present. At least that's been my experience. So anyway, oops. Yeah. So when we engage the beings of the highest light to work with us, the angels, there's millions, billions, trillions, and quadrillions of angels, okay? We have plenty of divine support and more, but we have plenty of divine support. Let's engage divinity to help us. I mean, geez, what more is it going to take for us to see that we should ask for help? I mean, this is one person's opinion. I offer the idea that it's okay for you to ask for the help of the divine and the support of the divine, and to ask for help at what appears to be this incredible, miraculous level where the divine can then remove that mechanism from your DNA that has been wrapped and put it in a container of light and take it to its place of highest good. And I like to take it to its place of highest good, or there are other things that can happen as well, but I'm keeping it short today, okay? I'm keeping it just condensed. Because if I just clear it from myself, it's kind of like going into the national park and throwing trash on the ground and not packing it out with you, I don't want to leave my energetic debris everywhere for someone else to run into or have to tidy up. So I just ask the angels to support me and help me with that. You can also ask your higher self to do that for you. All right, now, check this out. What if you got this injection, or someone you know has gotten this injection, and they got it, a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, okay? And you're like, oh my gosh, the replication has just gone on, and can I still do this? Well, you sure can. Here's how you do it. Now, see, when you're doing this kind of prayer, meditation, and energy work, it's in a space of no time. When you connect with God in prayer, when you meditate in a centered stillness, when you do energy work at 0 point, you are in a space of no time with that work, with those prayer requests, with the meditation. In a space of no time, all time points now become open and available to you. So all we do is we intend that at the point of injection and at the moment of injection, that the injected piece was wrapped with light, with healing light that caused this entire mechanism, as it replicated, going forward from that point in time, to be wrapped with healing light. Throughout any replications and effects that occurred in the body, backwards and forwards through time, from the beginning, in alignment with the highest good, under the dominion of your guides of the highest light. I'm going to ask that this be under the dominion of Archangel Raphael and Archangel Michael, Archangel of healing and technology, and the Archangel of protection and security and divine will. I mean, let's call in the big players for this. This is important. And so, This is the way you miraculously heal backwards in time. Okay, you miraculously invoke the process from the point in time through to the now moment and beyond, moving forward. This I share with you in alignment with the highest good and with love for all.